They told you Europeans invented steel. They lied. 1,000 years before the so-called Dark Ages, African metallurgists were reaching temperatures that should have been impossible. 1,800 degrees Celsius, in mud brick furnaces. And then, someone erased it from history. Here's what they taught you in school. The Romans had basic iron, the Dark Ages happened, then Europe discovered steelmaking in the medieval period. Clean narrative, linear progress, Western innovation. Except there's a problem. In Tanzania, archaeologists found furnaces, carbon dated to 400 BCE. That's 2,400 years ago. These weren't primitive campfires. They were precision engineering. Multi-chambered blast furnaces with forced air systems that could sustain temperatures exceeding 1,800 degrees Celsius, hot enough to produce carbon steel with consistent quality. The same steel European blacksmiths wouldn't master until the 1400s, 1,000 years later. But here's where it gets sinister. When colonial metallurgists first examined these African furnaces in the 1800s, they couldn't explain them, so they didn't. They called them anomalies, unexplained phenomena, probably contaminated samples. They buried the findings in obscure academic journals, and the narrative stayed intact. Let me show you exactly what they were hiding. To make steel, you need to do something iron alone can't do. You need to add carbon to iron at extremely high temperatures. But not too much carbon, or you get brittle cast iron. Not too little, or you just have soft, wrought iron. You need control. Control at 1,800 degrees Celsius. For context, a modern wood fire maxes out around 600 degrees. A regular blacksmith forge, maybe 1,200. To hit 1,800, you need engineered airflow, specific charcoal ratios, ceramic insulation, and controlled reduction chemistry. The higher people of Tanzania had all four. Their furnaces used bellows made from goatskin. Tuyeres, ceramic pipes, directed air into the combustion chamber at precise angles. And the furnace walls were lined with a clay mixture that reflected heat inward. And the charcoal wasn't random. They used specific hardwoods, harvested at specific times, prepared in specific ways to maximize carbon density. This wasn't trial and error. This was science. But it gets better. Or worse, depending on how you feel about being lied to. In the 1970s, a metallurgist named Peter Schmidt actually recreated one of these African furnaces with Haya elders. They followed the traditional methods. The result? High carbon steel, identical to the archaeological samples, using technology that predated the European blast furnace by over a millennium. The paper was published, it was peer-reviewed, it was verified, and then it was ignored. Because acknowledging it would mean rewriting the entire history of metallurgy, and admitting that the primitive Africans had mastered industrial chemistry while Europe was still figuring out the plow. Now here's the part they really don't want you to know. This technology didn't just disappear naturally. It was destroyed. When colonial powers divided Africa in the Berlin Conference of 1884, they didn't just steal land. They systematically dismantled indigenous industries, including metallurgy. Why? Because if Africans could produce their own steel, they didn't need European imports. They didn't need European civilization. They didn't need Europe. So the furnaces were broken. The knowledge was suppressed. The elders who held the traditions were dismissed as witch doctors. And within 2 generations, the technology was nearly extinct. But here's what keeps me up at night. The suppression didn't stop with colonialism. Even modern academia resists this narrative. Try searching "History of Steel" on any major education platform. You'll get Bessemer. You'll get Damascus. You'll get Toledo. You won't get Tanzania. And when African metallurgy is mentioned, it's framed as interesting or sophisticated for its time, never as superior, never as foundational, never as evidence that the entire timeline of human innovation is Eurocentric fiction. Because if African furnaces were producing high-carbon steel in 400 BCE, what else were they doing? So why does this matter? Because history isn't just about the past. It's about who gets to define progress, who gets to define intelligence, who gets to define civilization. For centuries, the story has been Europe innovates. Everyone else imitates. But the furnaces in Tanzania prove something different. They prove that technological mastery existed outside the Western canon. They prove that African metallurgists solved problems European engineers wouldn't face for another 1,000 years. And they prove that the narrative of primitive Africa is a lie, a deliberate lie. And once you see this lie in metallurgy, you start seeing it everywhere. In mathematics, in architecture, in astronomy. The Ishango bone, a 20,000-year-old mathematical tool from Congo. The stone circles of Nabta Playa, predating Stonehenge by 1,000 years. The astronomical alignments of the Dogon people, who knew about Sirius B before telescopes existed. These aren't anomalies. They're evidence. Evidence of a history that was systematically erased because it didn't fit the narrative of European superiority. But here's the thing about truth. You can bury it. You can ignore it. You can call it controversial. But you can't destroy it. The furnaces are still there. The steel is still there. The evidence is still there. And now you know. If this made you question what else they got wrong, there's another piece of hidden history you need to see. The Ishango bone, a 20,000-year-old mathematical tool from Congo. The steel circles of Nabta Playa, predating Stonehenge by 1,000 years. The astronomical alignments of the Dogon people, who knew about Sirius B before telescopes existed. These aren't anomalies. They're evidence. Evidence of a history that was systematically erased because it didn't fit the narrative of European superiority. But here's the thing about truth. You can bury it. You can ignore it. You can call it controversial. But you can't destroy it. The furnaces are still there. The steel is still there. The evidence is still there. And now, you know. If this made you question what else they got wrong, there's another piece of hidden history you need to see. The Ishango bone, a 20,000-year-old mathematical tool from Congo. The steel circles of Nabta Playa, predating Stonehenge by 1,000 years. The astronomical alignments of the Dogon people, who knew about Sirius B before telescopes existed. These aren't anomalies. They're evidence. Evidence of a history that was systematically erased because it didn't fit the narrative of European superiority. But here's the thing about truth. You can bury it. You can ignore it. You can call it controversial. But you can't destroy it. The furnaces are still there.
The steel is still there. The evidence is still there. And now, you know. If this made you question what else they got wrong, there's another piece of hidden history you need to see. The Ishango bone, a 20,000-year-old mathematical tool from Congo. The steel circles of Nabta Playa, predating Stonehenge by 1,000 years. The astronomical alignments of the Dogon people, who knew about Sirius B before telescopes existed. These aren't anomalies. They're evidence. Evidence of a history that was systematically erased because it didn't fit the narrative of European superiority. But here's the thing about truth. You can bury it. You can ignore it. You can call it controversial.